Global Americans is thrilled to be hosting this event. Thank you everybody here for attending with Foreign Minister Juan Holguín, U.S. Ambassador to Ecuador, Michael Fitzpatrick, and Ecuadorian Ambassador to the United States, Ivonne A-Baki. My name is Mentel. I'm the Executive Director of Global Americans. And for those new to our organization, I invite you to find us at theglobalameriCans.org, where you'll find critical analysis on the region that seeks to broaden the discussion of the Americas and the Caribbean within a global context. Most relevantly for the Foreign Minister, for Ambassador Fitzpatrick, for Ambassador A-Baki, and of course for our distinguished guests here with us today, I would invite you to go to our webpage and look at our high-level working group on U.S.-Ecuador relations, where we have assembled a distinguished world-class group of current and former diplomats, academics, and top actors in the public, private, and civil society space to cover some of the most critical issues in the U.S.-Ecuador relationship. As I mentioned, I'll be pretty brief here because we do have a full agenda and I want to make sure we give our distinguished speakers ample time. But just to kind of set the scene of what to expect, we'll begin with a recorded video of opening remarks from Ecuadorian Ambassador to the United States, Ivonne A-Baki. Then we will have opening remarks from the Honorable U.S. Ambassador to Ecuador, Michael Fitzpatrick, and then we will have opening remarks from Foreign Minister Juan Holguín, followed by a question and answer session with the Foreign Minister. So just by way of very brief introduction, though she needs none, Ambassador A-Baki is the current Ecuadorian Ambassador to the United States, having led a distinguished career as a diplomat, as a politician, and as an academic. She has served as Honorary Consul of Ecuador in Beirut, as Designated Ambassador of Ecuador to Qatar, Ambassador Non-Resident of Ecuador to Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Jordan, Oman, and Syria, Advisor to the President of the Republic of Ecuador, candidate for President of the Republic of Ecuador, and the first woman to be posted as Ecuador's Minister of Foreign Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, Fisheries, and Competitiveness. She's also served as President of the Andean Parliament and Ecuadorian Ambassador to the United States on multiple occasions, among many other posts in her distinguished career. So we're thrilled to call her a friend at Global Americans and are grateful for her participation in this event today. And so with that, I think we'll play Ambassador A-Baki's recorded remarks.
My dear friends, it's a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity to talk to all of you, even from a physical and temporal distance. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you because I'm currently traveling to New York for an event with Senator Menendez and the Ecuadorian diaspora in New Jersey. I would like to send a very warm welcome to Ecuador's Foreign Minister, Juan Holguín, with whom we had the opportunity to hold an important agenda in Washington a couple of weeks ago. Likewise, a special greetings for Ivonne A-Baki, Guy Mentel, and all the members of the Global Americans Board of Directors. I remember that even though the pandemic had started in March 2020, one of the first people I had contact with was Ivonne and Guy. They were among the few who, overcoming the natural fear that everyone had at that time, decided to continue with their face-to-face activities like us. And we began to meet in this embassy to identify ways to help Ecuador in those very challenging times. That is how we developed the idea of carrying out a project to raise awareness in Ecuador and the United States about the strategic importance for both countries of negotiating a trade agreement. Thanks to the generous support of Rodrigo Rivadeneira, I think he's with us today, I hope, this idea was made possible, and to date, several academic events have already been held with key actors in both countries, some of whom are participating in this meeting. Likewise, working documents were prepared on various topics, all of them with the aim of generating a better understanding of the importance of bilateral trade agreement, but above all, of the urgency of having this type of tools to support the process of democratic consolidation in Ecuador. Additionally, several events have been held with Ecuadorian authorities, such as the one that now brings you together. Now more than qualified. Now, I don't see any other person more qualified than our Minister of Juan Holguín, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador, that I call from the VIPs, who has vision, innovation, and passion. And he's going to share with all of you the latest advances we've had in Ecuador after the pandemic, and that now allows us to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to convey my sincere thanks for the commitment of all of you regarding Ecuador. The more enthusiasm we manage to gather, the shorter the path to build the country we all want, where peace, prosperity, and hope will be the ideals that we pass to our own and new generations. And I send you my warm regards, and I wish you much success in the program that now begins and always. Thank you very much.
Great. We wish to thank Ambassador A-Baki for preparing those remarks, and I'll now briefly introduce our other distinguished opening speaker, Ambassador Michael Fitzpatrick. Ambassador Fitzpatrick has been the U.S. Ambassador to Ecuador since June 2019. Before that role, he served in many distinguished posts, including Deputy Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs, as well as the U.S. Representative to the OAS and the Coordinator for the Summit of the Americas, a position that's particularly relevant as we look forward to the summit this June in the United States. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ambassador Fitzpatrick, and he will give his prepared remarks.
Thanks so very much. Good morning to everybody. First of all, let me say thank you to Guy and to Global Americans, not just for the chance to speak today, but as Ivonne also mentioned, I want to say thank you for all that you're doing to help ensure U.S. relations in the region aren't just words and aren't just limited to words between governments, but actually are broader than that, actually include not just governments talking to each other, but including civil society, private sector voices, and insisting on real world concrete solutions and results for the problems and challenges affecting all of our people. So thank you for that, Global Americans. And indeed, a quick shout out to Yvonne, who's not here, but of course, she's out building yet another bridge to yet another American community. And that's all I would ever expect from Yvonne, working it every single day. Likewise, kudos and buenos dias to el estimado canciller Juan Carlos Holguín. I very much appreciate him taking the time this morning to be with all of us and to share his thoughts in this conversation. I should start maybe by noting that President Guillermo Lasso was elected president of Ecuador to a 4-year term. He was elected 1 year and 2 weeks ago. He was inaugurated only 11 months ago. And Juan Carlos Holguín, as a foreign minister, has not even been in the cabinet 4 months yet. But it's been a whirlwind of a year and a whirlwind of the last couple of months. And it's already proving at our level, at the embassy level, our bilateral relations level, is proving to be a very close and constructive relationship with the government of Ecuador and with foreign minister and his team. We have so many different issues that we're working on jointly, from citizen security and counter-narcotics to public health, rule of law, commercial issues, environmental issues, climate issues, many of which are also going to be issues that will indeed be on the agenda for the Summit of the Americas being hosted by the United States in LA, Los Angeles, June 6th through June 10 this year. But let me start with some essentials worth reflecting on, even at a bit of distance in time. As I noted, it's not even been a year yet since President Lasso's inauguration. But before that, the country conducted 2 rounds of peaceful elections amidst, quite honestly, very polarized domestic environment. But a concession speech was given the same night Lasso won the runoff, and it was very tight. Followed that by a peaceful transition. And since then, Lasso tackled COVID in an extraordinary manner with not just a whole of government effort, but a whole of society effort. They ended up fully vaccinating more than 9 million of 17 million people in the country in less than 100 days. The U.S. was proud to be a partner in that. We donated 2 million Pfizer doses at a critical point in that process. We provided more than $32 million in other COVID assistance. CDC provided advice and counsel. But at the end of the day, it was Ecuadorians that did the work. They did all of it. And it was the key to not only launching or relaunching economic activation, but it was also a clear demonstration of one of President Lasso's critical goals, I believe, which is that pragmatic government can and does exist, and it can urgently deliver concrete results to people in need. And today, Pichincha province, where I am now and where the foreign minister is, the province that surrounds and includes Quito, enjoys a 94% fully vaccinated rate for everyone age 3 and over. That's an extraordinary accomplishment. But Ecuador's hope for economic recovery has now been challenged, unfortunately, like all of our economies have been affected around the world by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine have been key markets for Ecuador, several major Ecuadorian exports. Much of that's now in the past, I believe, even as Ecuador holds firm in its condemnation of the invasion and the war crimes being committed by Putin and his army. But freedom isn't free, and Ecuador recognizes that there is a price to pay for principles. Fortunately, Ecuador hosted the latest round of the Trade and Investment Council conversations with USTR here in Ecuador just weeks before that invasion. So both of our governments know clearly where things stand on the commercial and economic financial relations between the two of us. We will continue our cooperation with many institutions in Ecuador to support the rule of law, training and equipping for the judiciary, the Attorney General's office, the Procurador General, and police institutions and other elements of the government and some elements of civil society as well. And just Friday, on Earth Day, I announced the launching of a $50 million US government investment in environmental and economic reactivation partnership initiatives here in Ecuador. We are bullish on Ecuador and its long-term trajectory. In recent weeks, though, there's been a lot of discussion here in Ecuador, much talk about possible political instability, the National Assembly paralyzed by infighting, unable to hold sessions, as well as inter-party politics, possibly forcing snap elections, what are known snap assembly and presidential elections here, what are known here as La Muerte Cruzada. This has been followed by a series of surprise judicial decisions to free from prison certain politicians convicted of corruption and narcos convicted of murder. This has all further unsettled the national mood a bit at the moment. I'm going to let the foreign minister speak to those issues. I'm going to let the foreign minister speak to those issues if you would like, but let me just say one thing. Perhaps more than any Ecuadorian president in at least a generation, President Guillermo Lasso generally is working to respect the separation of powers in Ecuador while challenging the workings of those institutions so that they work for the benefit of all Ecuadorians and not just a select few. That brings its own challenges, of course, but the motivation and desire to get Ecuador off the merry-go-round of public corruption and to remove the presidential finger off the scales of justice is both noteworthy and laudable. Let me mention some of the Americas a little bit more. As I mentioned, June 6th through 10th in Los Angeles. The theme this year is building a sustainable, resilient, and equitable future. As the only hemispheric meeting of all the leaders of the countries of the Americas, the summit serves as the most important forum to address our collective region's shared challenges and opportunities. This is the 9th summit, and it marks the first time the United States has hosted the event since the inaugural meeting in Miami in 1994. It is President Biden's highest priority event for the region, and we're very much looking forward to it in early June. As chair and host, the United States will work with the region's stakeholders towards securing leader-level serious commitments and concrete actions in several different areas. Dramatically improving pandemic response and resilience. Hopefully we're more into the resilience phase now. Promote a green and equitable recovery, building of strong and inclusive democracies in the region, and addressing the root causes of irregular migration. Fundamental regional concerns for everybody. The United States' commitments to diversity and inclusion will also underpin our own efforts. After all, any efforts that fail to take full advantage of the contributions of all is, in the best of cases, short-sighted, inefficient, and unsustainable. We look forward to working with Ecuador on each and every one of these issues, areas in which we are already hard at work together. I could go on, but I won't, because I think you would all rather hear from the Foreign Minister of Ecuador than from me. With that, I'm going to cede the floor back to Global Americans and then to the Foreign Minister. Thank you all very much. I look forward to the Q&A with the Minister as well. Saludos.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Fitzpatrick. Foreign Minister, I don't think you could have asked for a better introduction. And many thanks, Ambassador Fitzpatrick, not only for the remarks, but for your attendance and your support and for all that you do to build this relationship. Foreign Minister Holguín, before you begin your remarks, I just want to briefly read off your bio and then also invite our attendees, our guests here, to write questions to the host in the Q&A box that you'll find on your screen. Just a note before we dive into this, that we may not get to all of these due to time, but we do invite you to contact us in that way. Juan Carlos Holguín was named Foreign Minister by President Guillermo Lasso in January of 2022. In May of 21, before assuming this post, Foreign Minister Holguín served as itinerant ad honorem Ambassador of Ecuador for strategic issues, leading, among other things, the strategy of vaccine diplomacy for Ecuador. Before assuming this role, Foreign Minister Holguín worked successfully in business with a particular focus on technology and tourism, among a number of other things, and also served as the director and founder of a number of diverse civil society organizations, among which includes his role as board member of the Ecuadorean think tank, Ecuador Libre. He's also the founding member of Se Puede, a program focused on education and inclusion in Ecuador. And again, we're thrilled to have Foreign Minister Holguín with us here today for one of his first public-facing events with a US-based think tank. So without further ado, Foreign Minister, the floor is yours for opening remarks of about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll dive into a Q&A section.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. It's a great honor to be here today. I would like to thank Global Americans for the invitation and for organizing this important event, which will allow me to tell you the state of relations between Ecuador and the United States, which is undergoing one of its highest peak moments in history, I think. I will also like to thank Ambassador Michael Fitzpatrick for your words. Ambassador, we are very grateful to the Embassy of the United States in Ecuador for all its support in two areas, specifically the vaccination process in our country during the last year and in matters of security and in defense. As you say, regarding the vaccination plan, we know that we did our job, but it wouldn't have been possible without the support of the United States, and thank you for that. I want to extend a greeting to our ambassador in Washington, Ivonne A-Baki, who does a great job in all the matters between Ecuador and United States. And I'm going to begin this speech by explaining President Lasso's vision of the government's international policy, which is more Ecuador in the world and more world in Ecuador. What this means is being able to take advantage of a globalized world in order for Ecuador and its products to find more opportunities in every corner of the world. Because the United States is one of our most important trading partners, I want to highlight our areas of cooperation. First of all, cooperation for development, security, and defense. And as you know, organized crime, illicit economies, and violence are problems that affect the entire region, and that in several cases have their origin in the United States. In recent years, Ecuador has witnessed greater links between transnational crime and domestic insecurity. We are experiencing some situations such as terrorism, the kidnapping and murder of 3 journalists, and we have a lot of local gangs with international ties that promote domestic drug use and territorial turf disputes, as well as the violence that has been evidenced in the prisons of Ecuador. All these phenomena are linked to the regional and international situation, with increased drug production in Colombia and Peru and increased demand in the United States, Europe, and even in Asia. These effects of these illicit activities not only affect citizen security, but also promote corruption and undermine the country's governance and democracy. To face this problem, it's essential to have international cooperation, especially from the United States, to develop greater state capacities in intelligence, training, communications, technology. in order to stop the escalation of violence and the growing links that exist between local groups and these international cartels. Regarding international narcotics control and law enforcement, in September 2002, Ecuador and the United States signed the Letter of Agreement for International Narcotics Control and Law Enforcement, which was amended in 2019. The United States, through the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, has allocated up until September 2020 approximately 25 million in funds. Ecuador received an additional 6.3 million in 2021 and 5.7 million in March 2002, for a total of more than 37 million. Ecuador reached a record of 2,011 tons of seized drugs compared to 60 tons seized in 2020. In 2021, Ecuador's drug seizures were greater than all the tons seizures of Central American countries combined. So you can imagine the problem we are having in our country. Regarding vaccine diplomacy, in July 2021, the United States donated 2 million doses of Pfizer vaccines to Ecuador, which is the largest donation received by Ecuador to date. And once again, thank you for this to Ambassador Fitzpatrick and your people in the United States. This donation was an important component of our vaccination plan. And this plan, as Ambassador Fitzpatrick was telling you, has produced high vaccination rates among the target population. At this time, in the entire country, more than 89% of all the population is already vaccinated with 2 doses. Regarding politics and diplomacy, we are preparing ourselves for the Summit for Democracy next year, and last year President Lasso participated in the Summit for Democracy in 2021. The Ecuadorian government is committed to upholding democracy, and that's something important to remark. Latin America is right now experiencing a complex political and economic situation, which has been aggravated by the repercussions of the pandemic. While social demands have grown and the employment rate has worsened, the pandemic has further restricted the fiscal capacity of states to meet the demands of citizens. And right now, because of the attack of Russia to Ukraine, this situation has new goals, and we need to work on that. At the same time, several countries in the region have opted for regimes and leaders that restrict freedoms and undermine democracy. Recent surveys show that the lack of trust of citizens in democracy as a model of government, and we need to be worried about this. Fake news and the malicious use of social networks puts at risk the credibility of that system of government in the region. The lack of sound institutions and of a strict respect for the rule of law makes it difficult to confront these attacks on democracy. Furthermore, there has been political changes in countries with a tradition of stability, such as Chile, Peru, Costa Rica, as well as potentially in Colombia. We're going to have the first ballot in 1 month, and in Brazil, which its first ballot is going to be in October, that could mark a radical shift in the configuration for all the forces in the region. In this context, for us, for our country, it's very important to seek a project or model that is different from what is happening in other countries in the region. The election in 2021 sent a powerful message to the region for a peaceful political process, as Ambassador Fitzpatrick was saying. Ecuador's political success is a clear message that a transition is possible from these authoritarian governments, such as the one the country experienced between 2006 and 2017, to a government committed to democracy, human rights, individual freedoms, economic responsibility, and priority attention to the most segments of the population who have a lot of disadvantages for their lives. Then we have this problem in corruption, and that's why the fight against corruption is one of the main objectives of our government. Ecuador is working really hard to be considered a showcase of an open and democratic model. We're working very hard with the civil society, and however, in order to do that, it needs broad international support so as to confront the challenges arising from a post-pandemic economy and actors that seek to destabilize its political process. If Ecuador doesn't receive international support in this matter, and its model is not consolidated, this message will empower those authoritarian leaders in the region who seek to implement populist policies. That's why it's very important, this matter. Corruption poses a dangerous threat to democracy and the rule of law in my country. And Ecuador has taken small steps to eradicate corruption from public institutions, but such a fight that aims at solving a problem that has been overlooked for too long requires support from allies like the United States. Ecuador is interested every day in deepening this cooperation to support the comprehensive fight against corruption. And we are very grateful of all the support that the United States is giving us regarding this matter. Thank you again to the work that Ambassador Fitzpatrick and his team does for our fight against corruption. Then we have another topic which is really important for our government, and is the climate change. Ecuador, as you know, is one of the 20 most biodiverse countries in the world. In a square meter of the Yasuni region, there is more biodiversity than in an entire continent. About 20% of the Ecuadorian territory is a protected area. And however, deforestation, climate change, and the economic needs of the population puts significant pressure on our flora and fauna. To promote conservation and to mitigate the impacts of climate change, the government of President Lasso has established the national policy of ecological transition, through which we aspire to reach zero net carbon emissions by the year 2050. And regarding this goal, new investments are required to include new technologies that advance the country's ambitious goals of promoting the circular economy and economic development. To this end, international support is essential as well, which is the case of the United States, may be linked to the Build Back a Better World initiative and the work of the International Development Finance Corporation. We are working with the DFC in some countries for this ecological transition, and we are very grateful for that. I must highlight today the decision of our country regarding the creation of the Marine Reserve Hermandad. With expansion, the total protected area around the Galapagos Islands will be 198,000 square kilometers. Besides protecting the species that live in this area, the initiative aims to discouraging illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. And this is really important for the protection of our environment. We have another big topic regarding our cooperation between United States and Ecuador, and is that Ecuador and the United States are the highest point of, we have a lot of migration right now in the frontier with the United States. So we are trying to solve this problem. Our relationship right now, as I was telling in my introduction, are in the highest point of our bilateral relations. This, of course, doesn't mean there is no room for improvements. In fact, the relationship has an enormous potential that we wish to explore and develop into concrete actions. We have had high-level visits during the last months. Evidence of the great state of this bilateral relation are the visit of Secretary of State Antony Blinken in 2021. I had the pleasure of visiting the United States and meeting with Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman 2 weeks ago, and other US authorities to discuss matters of bilateral interest. Last week, I was in Panama with Secretary Blinken, and we were discussing this problem of migration and all the things we need to do in order to solve this problem. Other authorities from the executive, as well as members of the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, have also visited Ecuador during the last year. And maybe one of the most important symbols of this relationship is the United States Partnership Act 2022. The US Congress has recognized the importance of this bilateral relation. The US Senate approved a landmark resolution by consensus on April 2021 in support of the bilateral relationship and in recognition of the political and economic progress in Ecuador. On March 23, 2022, this year, the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee approved by consensus the Ecuador-United States Association Bill, which is being discussed in the Senate. And once approved by the Senate and the House of Representatives, this bill will potentially become a law that will strengthen the bilateral relationship, and it will include economic, security, environmental conservation, and institutional issues of bilateral interest. Regarding human mobility, and I was telling you about migration, we have a lot of cooperation for development projects in the zones with greater migration outflows. An important factor to prevent trafficking in persons is fostering development in Ecuador through the generation of projects, jobs, and welfare opportunities, especially in these areas where we have the greater outflows of migrants. The success of this type of initiatives could help decrease migration flows that pose a threat to migrants and their families. It will also help to bring order and safety to these migration flows to the frontier between Mexico and United States. My country has made a lot of efforts to protect refugees as well, and refuge applicants during the last 2 decades, not only from Venezuela, but from Colombia as well. Ecuador has experienced an important inflow of Venezuelan citizens even during the first months of the pandemic, and the economic recovery of many countries, including Ecuador, has been slow. Economic difficulties notwithstanding, Ecuador has kept faithful to its commitments to migrants and refugee applicants. Ecuador is planning to legalize around 400,000 Venezuelan migrants. It's one of our main projects for human mobility. And for that, we require the support of the United States to access global concessional financing facility funds, as well as resources from other mechanisms to facilitate the integration of Venezuelan citizens and support Ecuadorian host communities. This program, we are thinking on launching it next week, and as I'm saying, is one of the most important projects we have for our human mobility policies in our country. Is very hard. It's very hard because we have a lot of needs in Ecuador, and we are adding more than 400,000 citizens to our system, but we are very responsible with migration. Regarding other topics of migration, for example, responsible migration and regular, safe, and orderly migration, Ecuador is interested in knowing more and jointly promoting all the programs that the United States has developed regarding regular migration. This was the main topic of the conversation and discussion last week in Panama, which includes circular migration, which can benefit Ecuadorian citizens. We're working right now in a pilot with Spain for regular migration, and we have very good results, and we hope to implement the same program, the same circular migration program with United States. Ecuador has supported around 2 million Venezuelan citizens during the last years and has looked after their needs through the provision of free public services to those in transit and to those who have chosen to remain in our country. This costed our country more than $75 million during 2020 and 2021. And this effort exceeds our national capabilities. That's why we are asking all the support of the international community, especially United States. Let me move to other areas, for example, trade and investments opportunity in Ecuador, foreign trade for the creation of opportunities. Trade relations with United States have been normalized in recent years. They have gone from a relationship marked by mistrust to another that has consolidated the spaces for dialogue, such as the reactivation of the Trade and Investment Council, which held its last meeting in Guayaquil in February, I think between February 15 and 16. It's important to know that despite the push of Chinese imports and the lack of a bilateral trade agreement with the United States, our exports to United States grew by 19% last year with a favorable surplus of 1.3 billion, while with China, there was a trade deficit of more than 1.8 billion, excuse me. So let me notice this in order to explain you the importance of the commercial relationship between United States and Ecuador. In last August, the Protocol on Trade Rules and Transparency, known as the Phase 1 Agreement, entered into force, modernizing important aspects of our bilateral trade relationship. However, the Ecuadorian government has expressed its clear interest in moving towards a complete trade agreement, which would not only provide greater certainty to businessmen from both countries and create job opportunities and promote foreign investment, but would also strengthen all our political relationship. It's essential to expand the support of U.S. official agencies in order to ensure that Ecuador is a priority to the United States in its trade negotiations agenda. For this purpose, our country has indicated that it is able to undertake a negotiation based on the trade agreement between United States, Canada, and Mexico, which is widely recognized in the United States as the model it will assume for negotiations to do in the future. Another important subject for Ecuador is the renewal of the GSP, as you know. While this is not a competence of the executive, the Department of State, for example, could support the strategy of lobbying the Congress to expedite this process. Currently, the renewal has been approved in both chambers, but in different terms. And that's why it's still necessary to reconcile the text. For example, the US Senate version proposed the renewal until the end of 2027, while the chamber version until the end of 2024. That's why it's very important to have this strategy together. Regarding B3W, the Ecuadorian government has promoted policies that provide legal certainty to investors and create an environment that promotes the attraction of foreign capital. The country has an investment portfolio of more than 40,000 million right now, 40 billion US dollars in different fields, infrastructure, energy, especially in oil and in mines, agribusiness, industry, services, tourism, among others. The government has clearly stated that its role will be that of facilitator of economic activity to ensure that a private sector initiative can flourish. For this purpose, we have introduced fundamental reforms to facilitate investment in our country. And B3W is essential to attract US capital to projects, mainly in infrastructure that Ecuador needs and that will have the benefit of generating more resilient value chains for US producers and consumers. Connectivity is really important for us as well. Ecuador, regarding Open Sky Agreement, is ready and awaiting the United States decision to sign the Air Services Agreement that both countries have negotiated. This agreement will support tourism and will facilitate the creation of travel routes between Ecuador and the United States. Those are maybe the main points of work we are having with United States. Right now, we are adding a new one, and is all the effects and the consequences of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because, as you know, the Ecuadorian economy, particularly the exporting sector, has suffered negative effects of the conflict and the sanctions imposed on Russia. In 2020, more than 5% of our Ecuadorian exports were destined to Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. Other countries in the world will undergo similar situations, and the United States should revise its policy of not negotiating trade agreements in light of the economic consequences the world economy will face due to this war. I think this is going to be an important point of discussion during the Summit of the Americas, and we hope to have the openness of United States to discuss this situation after the war. As you can see, there are many issues that currently unite Ecuador and United States. For our country, the support provided by the USA is extremely important, and we hope that at the Summit of the Americas, this support will come to fruition and in a closer vision between the United States and the region. In this post-pandemic world, and now because of the war, it's necessary to work together as a single continent. So we hope we're going to continue working close with United States, and once again, we're very thankful about especially what your embassy in Ecuador is doing to help Ecuador regarding all these matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Foreign Minister. That was a tour de force. So I think what we'll do now, Foreign Ministers, we'll start the Q&A section. And I want to remind the audience that if you have any questions, and I see them trickling in on my screen here, please feel free to use the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have. Foreign Minister, I want to start by zeroing in a little bit on where you see Ecuador in this current political moment. As you mentioned in your remarks, Ecuador sits today amid a lot of turbulence and uncertainty. You mentioned Peru, where there were very recently mass protests, and there seems to be some regular reshuffling of the Peruvian cabinet. You mentioned Colombia, where there were also mass protests culminating in El Paro Nacional, and those have been relatively frequent in recent years. And that's not even to speak of, as you also mentioned in your remarks, the refugee outpours from Venezuela. Yet, in that political context, Ecuador, at least in the early Lasso days, has continued to shine as a success story of sorts, or as you put it, as a showcase, with daily vaccine rates per capita dramatically increasing, which of course you were a big part of. And then at one point, Ecuador was actually outperforming nearly every country in Latin America, which culminated in an approval rating for your government in the mid-70s just a few months ago. Of course, that honeymoon period has ended, and that approval rating has come somewhat back down to earth. But you mentioned kind of the historical political context, the historical political opening, and Ambassador Fitzpatrick mentioned I think the wording he used was the merry-go-round of political instability. Can you speak a little bit of kind of a more forward-looking view as to where you see Ecuador today in terms of its regional standing, its aspirations maybe for a larger role in the region, and then just general concerns that you have and that your government has about contagion effects of regional political instability in the Andes and elsewhere in the hemisphere?
Well, the win of President Lasso last year was a light for the region. And we need this government to be successful for the people, because we need to show that democracy and freedom are the right model. And that's the most important thing to do. As Ambassador Fitzpatrick was saying in his introduction, we have a president that respects, for example, the division of powers. And it's hard to maintain this position in a country where for more than 15 years, an authoritarian leader was trying to occupy all the powers of the state. So maybe that's our main objective, to demonstrate our population that this model of democracy and freedom can generate good things for the families. So after vaccination plan, which was very successful for our country, we need to create more jobs. President Lasso right now is focusing his strategy in economy. Our economy growth more than we expected last year. We created more than 450,000 jobs last year, and this year we want to grow more our economy. Dollarization is a very important fact for our model. President Lasso was saying last year to the Argentinian press that if a dollar will be candidate for presidency in Ecuador, it will receive more than 99% of the votes because people trust in our monetary system. And we think we need to make all our efforts in order to maintain the dollarization in Ecuador. And that's why our vision of this commercial diplomacy is to attract most of the investment of some countries that are moving their money because of the political changes. That's our main goal. And once again, we know we need to maintain the flag of democracy and freedom in the region. We had a great conversation last week with President Lacalle Pou. Uruguay is facing most of the same problems we are facing in the region, and we need to work together with the regimes that believe in these ideas. That's why for us it was not very difficult to have a position in the war between Russia and Ukraine and condemn the attack of Russia, because for us is a matter of principles. We had more than $1.4 billion in transactions with Russia and exportations, and when I asked President Lasso of our position minutes after the attack of Russia to Ukraine, he told me something. He told me, never commercial is more important than our principles. So we are gonna have a frontal position condemning the attack, and Ecuador is trying to maintain this light of freedom in the region.
Great. And speaking of principles, Foreign Minister, I wanted to speak a little bit about the Summit of the Americas, which you, of course, mentioned in your remarks, and Ambassador Fitzpatrick did as well. The summit's focus this year in June is on building a sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for the hemisphere. And it's the only hemispheric meeting of leaders from the countries of the Americas. And as such, it serves as one of the most important forums to address the region's shared challenges and its opportunities. The United States has said that it hopes to secure leader-level commitments and concrete actions that dramatically improve pandemic response, that promote an equitable economic recovery, that builds stronger and more inclusive democracies, and that also addresses the root causes of irregular migration. I think you touched upon each of those in your opening remarks, but a sort of hypothetical question for you here, Foreign Minister. If Ecuador had its pick of 2 or 3 or maybe 4 agenda items to sort of center the discussion of the summit, what would they be? As you mentioned earlier, Ecuador sits in this regional sea of instability. It's one of the smallest countries in South America, yet also the nation that has received the 3rd largest number of Venezuelans fleeing the humanitarian situation in that country. It also looks on, perhaps nervously, at political instability elsewhere in the region. What is top of mind for you, for President Lasso, for your country, as the summit approaches?
I think there are many challenges for the region right now, but there are 3 that are very important, as I was saying. First of all, migration, because of the situation right now after the pandemics and because of the effects of the war, we're going to have a new wave of migration to developed countries, and it's very important to work on this topic from an international perspective. This is not a problem of Ecuador or this is not a problem of Colombia. It's a problem for everybody. So we need to have migration as one of the most important challenges for the Summit of the Americas, and that's why I think last week in Panama, it was very important for all the countries and all the ministers of foreign affairs to work together regarding this issue. Then security and defense, because the problem of drug trafficking and human trafficking is a transnational problem, and is affecting not only Latin America, is affecting United States, is affecting Canada, and we need to have a common view regarding this aspect. And then economy. We need to discuss about the new challenges of the economies after pandemic and after the war. And I think those three topics must be discussed in June in Los Angeles.
Great. Thank you so much, Foreign Minister. I think we have time for maybe one more question. I want to pull from one from our audience. There's been actually a number of questions sent in, but I want to pull from the one that talks about the Us Ecuador Partnership Act. And the question asks, how can it result in a real benefit for Ecuadorians? And maybe if you can elaborate a little bit further, as you know, I think we can speak a little bit to the not so distant past where relations between the United States and Ecuador were not quite as warm as they are today. Obviously, your president, Ambassador Fitzpatrick, Ambassador A-Baki are huge players in kind of the warming that we've seen and the increased relations that we've seen. Can you speak a little bit to the shift in relations, its drivers, your hopes for the future of this relationship? And then again, speaking to the question that was asked in the chat, what benefit you hope to see from the bill that is making its way through the Senate today?
Let me answer the question first. And all successful initiatives need strong foundations. And this Partnership Act can provide guidelines to develop actions to strengthen the bilateral relation. And the approval of a law reflects always the willingness of decision makers to advance common interests. So that's why it's very important to have this law, and it's very important to have the support of both parties in the approval of the law. Then, as I was saying in my speech, I think we are facing the highest peak of the good relationship between our country and United States, and I'm sure this will be continued by all the decision makers in the next weeks and months. The President Lasso always says that we are kind of a family in the continent, and we need to work together as brothers. And for us, United States is a brother that help us in so many areas. And we have in this last year lots of examples of this cooperation, successful cooperation, in benefit of our population. So once again, for us, United States is one of our most important partners for our future, for our present and our future. And we know we are gonna be working really hard together to attend all the needs of our countries.
Thank you so much, Foreign Minister. I think that's actually the perfect place to close. I think we're nearing the end of our time here in this public event. But those invited to our next Global Americans event, please look to the WebEx link provided. I'd like to close with another warm thank you to Ambassador Fitzpatrick, Ambassador A-Baki, and of course, Foreign Minister Holguín, as well as our wonderful audience with us here today who have submitted so many wonderful questions. This is one of many webinars that Global Americans will be rolling out in the coming weeks. So again, please look to our website for more information on that. It's been a real honor, Foreign Minister, Ambassador Fitzpatrick, and others here with us to share this virtual stage with you all. and to bask in all of the work that you're doing in Ecuador, in the United States, and across the hemisphere. So to all listening, thank you for your time and interest. And again, for those joining us for the next event, please look to the WebEx link provided. But thank you all so much for attending, and thank you, Ambassador Fitzpatrick and Foreign Minister Holguín.
Thank you very much, Guy. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.